Welcome to Sattva Restore Restorative Yoga Therapy. Today's pose we're going to use a block and a large bolster for. You could also use 2 blocks. So we're going to start in Upavista Konasana. So that's a wide-legged forward fold in Sanskrit. So we'll take our legs wide and just see if you can still maintain a seat here. Now if you're tending to lean back a lot and you feel like it's hard, your abdominal muscles are really contracting to be more upright, then you could elevate your hips up on a blanket or bolster to try to roll more toward the pubic bone. And then just find that comfortable space for you to abduct the hips. And then this might be enough for you the whole time, but we're going to try to warm up a little bit through the hips with some hip walking and hip circles. So the first one, we're going to bring the hands to prayer. Let's just tune in right now for our practice, these few minutes that we've set aside for ourselves today. And then interlace the hands. And we'll start to stir around. So you'll lean over one leg, stretch the arms forward all the way to the other, and then kind of engage the core as you come back to center. Making these big circles. So there's a little bit of activity now as we're pressing the legs down into the floor. Big breath as you stretch forward, and then exhale as you come back to center. Let's take that to the other side, stretching over the opposite leg, and then reaching across. Inhale, exhale, back to center. Inhale, reaching. Exhale, back to center. And once more like that. Inhale. Big yawn type movement, and then exhale back to center. Good. See if you can just relax your quadricep muscles. You might put a little bend through the knee and then straighten. Bend through the knee and then straighten. And then we're going to walk our hips. So you might need to bring the legs a little closer, a little further apart. See if you can lift one hip and walk it forward. These are our hip walks. We do these in chairs sometime as well. And then pulling the hips back. So we're strengthening all these muscles around the pelvis. Good. And just try a little bit forward and back. And always, if a movement is not happening for you, you can imagine it. That is the mind-body connection of yoga. So just bring your mind there and just focus on engaging that glute, a little pull. And eventually, the mind will connect with the body and it'll start to work for you. Good. Then we'll find that neutral position. Again, this may be enough for you. Find the width where you're not really feeling it in the hips. You don't want to be, I could be way out here, but then there's too much of a pull. So remember, this is more about finding that relaxation. So that space that feels good. You can sense a little something, but not much. And then we'll take the blocks or block underneath and the bolster in between the legs. So you might just be here, breathing for this entire time. And you can just let your legs be natural, so they might kind of hug in a little bit. If you can keep that boundary of the toes up, that's great, but probably not going to happen as we all have a little different foot pattern. Instead, just try to relax these quadricep muscles. You can massage them out. Some of you may be more flexible, and you can go up and over that bolster. So we don't want to just round into this. That puts a lot of load in the mid-back. So instead, we want to keep the shoulders down, the tips of the shoulders together, and then start to move our belly toward the bolster first. You could always stack more bolsters or use a block under the head. Or if it's available to you, you can start to lay down onto the bolster. And breathing here. Good. I won't go all the way because it might affect the quality of sound for you. So I'm just going to hug the bolster here. Once we're in, surrendering to this time as always. It's a time that we can take for gratitude for our bodies and all the service and actions that we bring into the world. It's one thing that I love about yoga. Yoga and Ayurveda state that the reason to be healthy, to have this vital body, is so that we can complete our purposes, our duties, our dharma in the world. It's really just keeping this physical body like a well-oiled machine running effectively that service and love out into the world. So making friends, it's not about comparing ourselves with others or trying to fit into a rigid mold of what we believe perfection to be. It's an act of service and offering. Let that breath help to wash away any pain, calm the mind, and make the body more vibrant for your day or evening. You might notice that after you spend some time here, you fall more deeply into the pose, not because you were grasping or pulling, but because this surrender, this diving beneath tension happens organically when you're present with your breath and when you don't go too far. So letting that be a lesson for us off the mat as well. Take 2 more breaths into the belly and out. And we'll slowly start to crawl ourselves back up. And sitting up may take a moment if the blood pressure has lowered, you're more in that relaxation state. And then we'll lean onto our fingertips or hands, turning them out, and slide the feet, making that footprint into the floor. And then just rotate the knees down. So when we rotate the hips like this, we're just working that true internal and external rotation. So that's the relationship of this thigh bone into your pelvis. So rather than pushing the knee forward and the hip forward, we're just gliding, finding that place where it stops naturally, and then back up. And then gliding, finding that place where it stops naturally, and back up. Let's do one more time each side. Good. And then coming back to whatever position is comfortable for you to sit in. Thank you so much for joining me for Sattva Restore Restorative Yoga Therapy. I'm Vani with PranaYoga Insitute. Namaste.